Hey, Daddy, this is the man of the champions, Bill Fonzie Alfonso, giving a shout out to
Something else.
something else, Daddy.
This is Nicole Matala, Great Warrior Wolf, and you are listening to Something Else.
I'm Tony Cini, and you're listening to Something Else.
Hey everybody, it's Rich Palladino, the voice of New England, and you are listening to Something Else with Arya.
Yeah, I played the wrong song. Welcome to episode number 298 of Something Else. Feast your ear holes in this week's episode as we take a look at NWA Total Nonstop Action, episode number 97 from May the 26th, 2004. My name is Arya, and joining me, as always, is the Armando Quintero to my Scott Hudson. It's Cyndi. Cyndi, how the hell you doing today?
If I knew how to speak Spanish, I could reply properly. But I don't. So I'll just...
I don't believe he translated that promo correctly either. We'll get to that later.
But anyways, I am feeling all right. Want to say thanks for Trey for filling in on short notice.
Did you watch last week's show?
I did watch last week's show. I'd have been perfectly fine talking about it.
What did you think of the Deadly Draw match?
Too confusing for its own good, and you could see the Jarrett interference coming a mile away.
Well, because it turns out, as I noted, he is not James Storm, Kid Cash, Dallas, 3 Live Crew, or Sabu, and thus he was allowed to interfere in the match.
Yep.
And I told this to Trey off air last week. I should have thought about it quicker. If 3 Live Crew was quick on their feet, they could have said that they put Jeff Jarrett in 3 Live Crew. So now because he interfered, he was fired.
Yeah, but they would have been fired too.
Well, no, because BG and Conan didn't interfere. You know, they didn't say if one member they interfere, they all get fired. You know. I'm sorry. I'm dealing with really shitty suspension angles on Mid-South this week. And, when I'm complaining about something stupid Mid-South is doing. I'll tell you what, if Jerry Jarrett decides next week on TNA, he's got to get up and get back in the ring and wrestle, then I'll have a pretty good rant about that. For now, I'll save my rants on Bill Watts, who this week on Mid-South announced that he is getting back in the ring. Because that's what the world needs.
He's going to hook him up one last time.
Yes. For no reason, by the way. It's not like, somebody beat him up or they beat up Joel or whatever. No, he just decided, what the hell, I'm just going to get back in the ring.
Got to pop the territory.
Sure. Anywho, what else is happening this week in wrestling before we dive into things? The future of TNA is in the news this week as they're negotiating with the Ring of Honor World Heavyweight Champion Samoa Joe to come in to be Johnny Fairplay's muscle. And think for a minute if that would have happened. Like, they bring in Samoa Joe a year before they do, and they're bringing him in to be the muscle behind Johnny Fairplay. If you ever needed further proof that TNA never knew what they were doing, I guess that's all you needed there, I guess.
Yep.
By the way, people realize that the reason for this is because TNA is not allowing anyone to work for them and Ring of Honor at the same time. So they're literally just trying to get to steal Ring of Honor's champion from them, and Joe is not willing to do that. So, spoiler, he's not coming in anytime soon.
Yeah, maybe wait till this time next year.
Well, speaking of weird randomness, Conan last week at the show was saying goodbye to everybody, because he apparently is going to be offered a job with WWE. And despite that, he is booked for next week's pay-per-view and the first Impact tapings. And much like Samoa Joe coming in to be Johnny Fairplay's muscle, nothing comes of this.
What would they? Now, this is 2004 WWE. I'm trying to think of any logical situation where Conan could have been brought in when this was at a time where managers didn't exist.
My best guess would be as a favor to Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio. And Eddie was the WWE champion at this point.
He was until Great American Bash, which was in a few weeks.
Yes. JBL has not yet goose-stepped around the ring. And there's a very good chance Guerrero was going to lose the title anyway, because by all accounts, he was having some mental problems going on right now. But literally, it was all the heat Bradshaw got in real life for goose-stepping around the ring in Germany that made Vince put the belt on him. 2004, by the way. What a year.
Yep.
Elsewhere, TNA has purchased 2 different 6-sided rings, one for the guys to practice in Nashville before the official ring debuts next week on Impact. And they've also been bragging to the wrestlers how good the set they built looked. And, it's an all right set. It's definitely a major step up from the one they're using here in Nashville. But then again, the Fairgrounds Arena is so small, they don't really it's like they can put a big giant set there in that building.
As far as I like how the first set is, it's how certain game show sets start out basic, but then they extrapolate and look better a few months later down the road. That's Impact's set, not just the entrances, but the whole arena. It looks a lot better, especially when they hit Spike.
Yeah. When they build it out a little bit more, because if I remember right, it's more or less just a tunnel and a straight ramp going down to the ring with the Titantron above it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just that once they build it out a little bit more, there's more left to right space. And people don't just have to walk out and walk straight to the ring.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I don't know why I keep forgetting to mention this, especially since we're episode 298. Next week, 7 days, 168 hours away from the amazing, one-of-a-kind 300th episode of Something Else. Arya, Cyndi, Trey. It is TNA from June 2nd, 2004, with the main event that we'll get to in a few minutes, and Impact episode number 0001. That is, in fact, next Wednesday, along with the very special surprise that I have. And I got to say, I haven't told either you or Trey this, but it's a pretty nice little surprise.
I look forward to the surprise.
What was that?
I look forward to the surprise.
Yes. I think you'll both enjoy it. Although I could also be playing it up way too hard and you'll both think it suck. But we'll see. All right. So this show was taped partially on May 12th and partially on May 19th. And it's funny because Taichi was not here on May 12th. And so anything involving Taichi got taped on May 19th. And so, the show gets taped, I'm just saying, horribly out of order because of that. And I might as well just kick it off from the start. I got a nitpick. The show is post-produced, and there are sections of this show that are very obviously, commentated in post-production by Tenay and West. And the audio is just fucked up. Like I said, it's fucked up. During especially there's a tag match where like there's no crowd audio at all, and not because they weren't making noise, but because they piped in all this fake crowd noise, and so like you can't hear the ring at all. You can see fans, cheering and screaming, but because there's fake crowd noise that's overwhelming it, you can't hear them at all. And thankfully, it was not a show-wide problem. I don't know what it was about these specific matches. Maybe it's because they did tape the tag matches out of order and the Gauntlet match out of order. But it's like, man, I watch this and I'm like, good God, what is with this shit? Now, speaking of the matches, we get our the rundown of what the points situation is. The first match tonight is going to be a 16-man gauntlet match where the winning team, the man who wins this match, will win 3 points for his team, and the runner-up gets 1 point. And they don't really mention this, although they kind of do later on. If both finalists are from the same team, that team will in fact get 4 points. Then we're going to have 2 tag team matches with the winners getting 2 points each, a 4-way ladder match for 4 points. We're going to eliminate the team with the least number of points, and the final 3 teams will send 1 person each into Ultimate X, which is technically for 5 points, but it really doesn't matter.
It's the Golden Snitch.
Yes. All right, so the first match, 16-man gauntlet match. Number 1 is Christopher Daniels. Number 2 is Johnny Devine. Now, I'll be honest, I've seen 8 million gauntlet matches in TNA, and when I saw Christopher Daniels and Johnny Devine coming out at number 1 and 2, I'm like, the last 2 people in this match are going to be Christopher Daniels and Johnny Devine, because that's TNA. They love the 1995 Royal Rumble.
Not so fast, my friend.
And yes. Number 3 is Nosawa, and there was a bit of an agreement between Canada and Japan to work together, against the other 2 teams, and specifically here, Devine and Nosawa work together against Daniels. Number 4 is our Lord Taichi, who did not come out singing his own theme song. He did not come out with the lovely Miho Abe. He just came out to some generic Japanese theme music and ran to the ring.
He came out. Essentially, it was the Team Japan theme.
Yes.
So just quickly for everybody, Team NWA comes out to Jerry Lynn's theme. Team Canada comes out to the Canadian National Anthem. They do not get their Team Canada theme until a couple weeks from now.
That is their Team Canada theme.
No. I mean the Team Canada theme. Not the basic bitch Canada theme that we have now, but the electric guitar laden Team Canada theme.
Anyway, go ahead.
Team Japan's theme is this. It was Low Key's theme early in TNA. They just beefed it up a little bit, and then you have the Team Mexico theme, which you've heard long before.
I have. We'll assume I have.
Yeah.
So number 5 is Chris Sabin. Sabin immediately eliminated Taichi. By the way, this is, I guess, going to be a spoiler alert for later. This match is the only appearance of Nosawa on this show, I believe. Yeah, because he's not in the ladder match.
I think their plans they were going to have him in Ultimate X.
Yes, that is the story. Number 6 is Mr. Aguila. Number 7 is Petey Williams. Petey went right after Sabin, as it was noted that they both trained at the same wrestling school, although they don't specify that it's D'Amour's school. Number 8 is Ryuji Hijikata. Sabin went for a powerbomb on Petey, but Williams turned it into a Hurricane Rana, taking Sabin out of the ring, eliminating him. So that's 8 people in. Do you have any thoughts on the first half of this? The first 8 people?
Yeah, I remember Ishikar. Okay, here, I'm using the name that TNA used at the time. Taichi was Ishikari. His full ring name was uh, Taichi Ishikari.
Yes.
So I just have it as Ishikari in my notes.
Okay.
Because I'll be honest, I don't watch New Japan or All Japan.
Well,
No,
it was
no,
all
he's in New
Japan
Japan
in.
right now. He's still wrestling right now.
Yeah.
Like
Yes, he
he
does. He
was
comes out
said,
singing his own theme song.
yeah, he was wrestling. If I remember hearing today right, 16 months into the business, and he's. By the way, for those of us in America, this is the first and only time he was in America.
Not entirely true. It's the only time he wrestled in America. But as Trey mentioned last week, because by the way, Taichi, as a bit of insider knowledge, hates flying, and so that's why he didn't, come to 2 different shows, because he hates flying to America, especially. But anyway, when they did the G1 in Dallas a few years ago, that was when New Japan and AEW were not besties, and so Taichi would have had to wrestle Moxley, but because Moxley's contract was he couldn't wrestle for anyone else in America without AEW's permission, and AEW and Japan aren't getting along, so no Moxley. So Taichi had to fly across the world to cut a promo on a press conference gimmick.
Yeah, that's one thing that New Japan really loves is
Well,
those press conference gimmicks.
it's real, bro.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and in real sports, you have a press conference. By the way, speaking of press conferences, Double or Nothing is happening right now, and as you might be able to tell by my lack of background noise, I am not at the Louis Armstrong Stadium in Queens, New York. I did not get my press pass for this show.
I will say that
Um,
I have a friend who's at the show right now.
mhm. He's watching FTR versus Copeland and Christian right now. Anyway, back to the match. Jerry Lynn is number 9, who immediately eliminates Nosawa. Number 10 is Heavy Metal. Team Mexico teamed up to put Petey to the apron. Petey, I like this was a neat spot. They dumped Petey over the top rope, and he ends up on the apron, but he's up by where the cameramen stand, and they have a little podium there. And so Petey was sitting there with his feet up on the podium, relaxing for a second. And then one of the members of Team Mexico came by with a baseball slide drop kick and sent him flying off the apron onto the floor. I think it was Heavy Metal that
Yeah, it
gave
was
it to
Heavy
him.
Metal.
Number 11 is Mitsu Harai Jr. I don't want to rip on Jeremy Borash too bad, but every time he calls a Japanese wrestler's name, he says it so fast that it sounds like gibberish. Like he doesn't know how to pronounce it, but figures if he says it quickly, no one will notice.
I think that is actually the case. Because didn't he kind of butcher Ichikara and Ishikara? Yeah, he butchered Ichikara's name quite a bit.
He butchered Hijikata, especially. Um, Number 12 was Bobby Roode, who immediately speared and eliminated Daniels, who'd been in since the start. Number 13 is Abismo Negro. Negro and Metal teamed to clothesline Divine out, and then Heavy Metal and Harai eliminated each other. Number 14 is Elix Skipper. Rude dumped Jerry Lynn, who sold his knee when he hit the floor, but that ended up being nothing. I thought that was going to be an angle for later in the show, but it wasn't. Aguila went for a crossbody on Skipper, who ducked, and Aguila went flying out of the ring. Number 15 is Eric Young, and number 16 is Hector Garza. Garza immediately eliminated Rude, leaving our final 5 as Garza, Negro, Young, Skipper, and Hijikata. As I wrote that, both Negro and Hijikata got eliminated, and then Garza and Skipper teamed up to eliminate Young, leaving them. And when TNA does a gauntlet match, when it comes down to the last 2, it becomes a singles match most of the time. And that's what happened here. We get Skipper and Garza. And hey, Garza's been in this promotion since February. Once a month, he comes in to do his X Cup matches. And every month, he does the spot where he gets down on his knees and holds out his hand to shake the hand of the other person. And the other person, every time, will look to the crowd like, should I shake this man's hand? And then Garza gets up and punts him in the dick. He did that this time, and Elix Skipper did not fall for it. Elix Skipper, smartest person in TNA. I always have to laugh because this comes up a few times in this show. TNA has done such a good job of getting Team Mexico over as baby faces that they will chant Mexico, Mexico. And it's funny because he's in the match with fucking Elix Skipper, who's Team USA. We're in the deep south where you think, the biggest rednecks on the planet, but they were chanting for Mexico.
They were also chanting for a proven winner at the time.
Yeah. Garza pinned Skipper with a roll-up. So Team Mexico wins the gauntlet, gets 3 points, and Team USA gets 1 point by virtue of being in second place. And then after the match, Skipper and Garza shook hands for real. Dun, dun, dun.
Yep.
So fun action here.
Sportsmanship rules the day.
So this was a fun match, no doubt. And yeah. I'm not saying it wasn't. I'm not saying it wasn't a good match. I gave it a 6 out of 10. And I get they were trying to break this up a bit and do some fun gimmick matches during the show. But honestly, because we were going to have a ladder match and an Ultimate X match to come, I would have liked for them to do, instead, do 4 4-ways. Figure out a way to book it, do 4 4-ways, and then the ladder match and the Ultimate X match. And this way, you don't have people like Nasawa come in for a 3-minute run in a gauntlet match. And that was all he did. You could have done all this other stuff with them. And, I think it would have been more interesting, but oh well, that's not what they chose to do. And like I said, I gave this a 6.0 out of 10.
I gave it a 6.5 out of 10. Pretty much everything that you said, I just liked it a little bit more than you did. To be perfectly fair, this was the first time I watched this, so I thought maybe Nasawa was gonna be in the ladder match, since he's kind of the team's ace, and they didn't have any point, and as far as I knew, you probably wanted to put more focus on the ladder match because you would at least get some way into Ultimate X.
We'll get to it, but ultimately, it made sense with their options they had left as to why they did what they do. But it comes back to bite them in the ass. But here's all I'm going to say about the next segment. They got it out of the way early. So after the recap of the Deadly Draw match, Jeff Jarrett realized that we can't have an X Division pay-per-view by itself, and he stormed to the ring to bitch and moan. He, for some reason, and this is the ultimate for some reason commentary, for some reason, he demanded Mike Tenay get into the ring. And Mike Tenay literally contributed nothing. It wasn't even like the usual, he's, doing whatchamacallit. By the way, Stokely's on fire right now, literally. But thankfully he stopped, dropped, and rolled.
Learning from his time in elementary school, which was about 50 years ago.
Yes. So Mike Tenay got in the ring for no reason because Jarrett just took the mic. They didn't do the Jarrett's threatening to feud with Mike Tenay, even though they're never going to have a match thing. And instead, Jarrett gets the mic and demands that Vince Russo come out to confirm his world title match. Jarrett, I don't know, maybe I just really wasn't paying that close attention here, but Jarrett more or less demanded to have a 5-way match. And so Russo came out and announced it will be a 5-way match. and it'll be the first ever King of the Mountain match. Russo then tried to explain the rules of the King of the Mountain match, and Jarrett stopped him mid-sentence and said that won't work. I'm going to bet Jarrett didn't mean that the way that he said it.
He could see the future!
I actually had to laugh because last week when I was reading The Observer in preparation for last week's show, Dave talked about how they announced the King of the Mountain match for June 2nd and said that no one's been able to explain it to him except that it involves a penalty box and climbing a ladder. And Vince Russo's explanation, literally, if I didn't know what that fucking match was supposed to be because we've seen a million of them, I have no idea what the fuck that match was supposed to be. He just talked about a penalty box and climbing a ladder and hanging the belt. I said this last week. It is the fault of the wrestlers involved that we keep having these dumbass gimmick matches, and they needed to take one for the team. Do you remember when Sting and Abyss had that fucking last rites match with the coffin dropping from the ceiling and everyone chanting "Fire Russo"? They never did that match again.
One of the stupidest gimmicks.
Yeah, they never did that match again. But because these people take pride in their work. I'm not saying Sting and Abyss didn't, because I mean there was nothing they could do in that fucking match. But it's like AJ Styles, Chris Harris, Raven, and Ron Killings made that fucking deadly draw match work because they went out and killed it in that, especially in that last 5, 6, 7 minutes. So now we have this ridiculous ass gimmick match that they're going to do over and over again for the next decade. And I'm not going to bother explaining the rules. We'll get to that next week when I play the all-time greatest sound drop in TNA history, when Scott Hudson explains it. We'll get to that. But yes, the King of the Mountain match. Yes, the King of the Mountain match is next week. And by the way, I don't mean to spoil things for you in case anyone couldn't figure out this was going to happen, but Edge and Christian did in fact win the tag team championship.
So what are the odds they drop him? What are the odds they drop him to the Bucks at All In?
Does anybody have a Money in the Bank to cash in right now?
Not for the tag titles.
Scott Hudson is with Team NWA. Jerry Lynn says that they will win. I like the confidence, you know? So we go to our first tag team match, which is Bobby Roode and Johnny Devine representing Team Canada, who currently has 0 points, versus Christopher Daniels and Elix Skipper representing Team USA, who currently have 1 point. And it's funny because 3 of the 4 people in this match are going to be huge parts of the tag team title picture for the rest of 2004. And like the only way to have made it more of a preview was if Eric Young was in this match instead of Devine.
Right. And by the way, if you're keeping track for what we've been talking about Bobby Roode for the past 3 weeks on this show, Bobby Roode, yes, in this match, has his bucket hat.
I don't want to alarm anybody. Bobby Roode is really good at professional wrestling. I don't know what. Maybe we'll get to this when we get to this part of TNA in a couple of years. But it's like when I was younger, Bobby Roode was the most boring fucking person on the roster. I'm like, why do they keep pushing Bobby Roode? And it's like, but you go back and you watch like this. He's fucking great. Bobby Roode is fucking great. Like, what the hell was I smoking in 2006 when I'm like they need to fire this man?
I think you confused him for A1.
No, I definitely did not confuse Bobby Roode and Alistair Rouse. I'm almost sad that they brought in Johnny Devine here and not A1. Almost sad.
I wonder what happened to Johnny Devine to make him be gone from Team Canada for until they brought him back in 2006 for.
What, wasn't he in a bar fight? Like I thought he was in like a bar fight, and then he somebody stabs him or something.
Oh, so like John Cena, but it actually did happen.
Something like that, yeah. And by the way, it says something about Canadians, and I don't know if Rude and Divine were also. I know Johnny Divine was trained by Bad News Allen. They've said that before. I don't know if D'Amore trained Bobby Roode. I know he trained Petey. I don't know about EY, but it says something about the Canadians because at this point there are no major league Canadian wrestling companies. And so you're essentially taking four Canadian indie guys and putting them on a national stage more or less for the first time ever. And they're all fucking killing it.
Yeah.
And it's like they took the same risk with Team UK a few months ago, and it obviously did not work then. But it's like, yeah, they took four Canadian indie guys, put them on national TV, and they're all fucking killing it. So Rude and Divine get the heat on Skipper. I'm assuming it's because they're mad at him for abandoning Team Canada when WCW went out of business.
Hey, they were like, hey, you're a former Grey Cup champion. You're supposed to be with us.
I was thinking about that Lance Storm story that Elix Skipper said something about being in the Super Bowl, and Lance Storm was like, "You mean you were in the Grey Cup?" And Skipper had no idea what the Grey Cup was, and I was wondering if Elix ever found out what the Grey Cup was. Daniels got the hot tag and ran wild. Daniels and Skipper did their suplex crossbody to Divine for a near fall. The finish saw everyone hitting a big move on everyone. Rude gave Daniels a spine buster where Daniels almost jumped through the roof. Skipper gave Divine the rope walk Hurricane Rana and pinned him after the powerplex. This was a pretty good tag match. I gave it a 6.5 out of 10.
Exactly what I gave it, 6.5 out of 10. All four, it's refreshing. Let's take four guys who I have to assume Rude and Divine teamed before. I don't know what part of Canada Rude comes from.
I think he's in Ontario, isn't he? I think Divine's in Western Canada.
Yeah. Because they said he was from Vancouver. Which I want to get back there again. It's a beautiful city. And you have essentially Triple X, which this iteration of Triple X is going to be this way until they're forced to break up. Spoiler.
Against their will.
Mm-hmm. And you just get a really good back and forth match that tells a really good story. That's all you need. And by the way, with this, Team USA gets 2 points. And because of that, Team Mexico and Team USA are guaranteed a spot in Ultimate X.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll get to that later, but more or less, yeah. By the way, now, I don't know how accurate Cage Match is with Canadian indies, but according to Cage Match, this is the first time these two have ever teamed up.
Yeah. And it looked like they teamed up for at least a few years.
So after video recapping last week's bunkhouse match, quote unquote, it was confirmed that on June 2nd, it will be Kid Cash in Dallas versus James Storm and Dusty Rhodes for the tag titles. And after the quote unquote bunkhouse match, where they were always following the rules and, it was at a 12-minute tag match, I can't wait for next week when there is a match with rules. Because I guarantee they will break more rules during a tag team match than they did during the bunkhouse match.
That match was so bored. Did you rate that match anything higher than a 2?
I think I gave it a 3. But yeah, Scott Hudson was now with James Storm and Dusty Rhodes. Scott Hudson was out with James Storm and Dusty Rhodes. After a video recapping last week's bunkhouse match, it was confirmed on June 2nd it'll be Kid Cash in Dallas versus James Storm and Dusty Rhodes for the tag titles. Scott Hudson was now with James Storm and Dusty Rhodes. That wasn't just me being weird. After the pre-taped Cash promo was part of that video package, Hudson started introducing this promo, and then they went back to the pre-taped Kid Cash promo.
Boresh was asleep at the wheel editing this show.
I don't think Boresh was did that until whatchamacallit, British Boot Camp.
You mean he's
Um,
not editing the show anymore?
well, he never really edited the show until British Boot Camp because that was his baby.
Wow.
Um, so Dusty is whiskey bent and hellbound, whatever that means, and looking forward to getting a tag team title match next week. Turns out that's a reference to a Hank Williams song.
Now we have to make reference that it's a Hank Williams Sr. song. So you're good there, not the "Are you ready for some football?" bastard.
I'm so happy that you were here to correct me. Speaking of seniors and juniors, Mitsu Harai Jr. and Ryuji Hijikata, representing Team Japan, who currently have 0 points, versus Abismo Negro and Heavy Metal, representing Team Mexico, who currently have 3 points. Now, Tanay loved a match like this because they gave him the chance to talk about the history of wrestling in the Orient. He got to talk about All Japan being founded by Giant Baba and is now being run by the Great Muda, both of whom are former NWA world champions. And I got to say, Heavy Metal, I pop for Heavy Metal because we got a dive spot, and Heavy Metal did a plancha 3/4 of the way across the ringside area to Hijikata. And that was a really nice little dive there.
Yeah, it was.
Tanay mentioned the same fact about Harai that he mentioned last week about Harai's dad wrestled in the Nashville Fairgrounds Arena back in the Jackie Fargo, Jerry Jarrett days, so like back in the 70s. That's a cool little factoid.
Yeah. Harai's dad was what, Tojo Yamamoto here in the States?
I honestly don't even know who it was.
I mean, Tojo was a key player in Memphis for a long, long time. After he stopped wrestling, he became a pretty prominent manager for the CWA, later USWA.
Let me see here. 1 second. It doesn't say anything about Yamamoto. He's the son of Mitsu Harai. That's it. So it is not Tojo Yamamoto, just Mitsu Harai Sr.
I thought that was his ring name here in the States.
I think you're thinking of somebody completely different.
Mm-hmm. The one that almost broke Honky Tonk Man's arm when he tried to train.
Yep, that's a completely different person.
Shame.
And so let's see here. Hijikata did his own version of the Garb Stomp, except that it was just focused on the left arm. To be honest, if Tanay wasn't talking about how it reminded him of the Garb Stomp, I don't think anyone would have thought of that. It was just him stomping on the left arm. Metal and Negro did the Matt and Jeff Hardy Poetry in Motion spot, unknowingly previewing an upcoming signing here in total nonstop action. And finally, Harai pinned Metal with an Exploder suplex. A good match, but not as good as the last tag match. And actually, I think it ended up being the worst match on the show. 5.0 out of 10.
I'm in total agreement, except for the score, 4.5 out of 10 for me. It was the worst match of the night, so you have to know it's a good wrestling show when the worst match gets a 4.5 out of 10. Yes. Or in your case, a 5.0 out of 10.
When the worst match is 2.5 stars, it's a good show, ladies and gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
So now that leaves Team Canada as the only team with a goose egg at this point, and Scott Hudson is now with Team Canada. D'Amore told Eric Young it's all up to him. If he doesn't win the ladder match, they will disappoint 26 million people and will be eliminated. And then D'Amore suddenly became very Canadian and fired up Young.
That's how you do it. I mean, you know what? You start off solemn. You know what? If you lose, it's the end. We disappoint all all of our corporate sponsors. He name drops Molson, which I don't think Molson even knows TNA exists.
I think it's a safe bet. Yeah.
But then he becomes Canadian hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Oh,
Canada.
hey. All right.
Just
So,
it's just such a weird. It was just such a weird promo by D'Amore. I was like, Solemn D'Amore is something I really can't get behind, but when he does silly stuff like this, I can get behind him.
it's almost like when Tommy Pritchard on Mid South is not doing a blatant Roddy Piper impression during his promos. It's like that's not what that man sounds like. So we then go to the third round of the World X Cup. It is Eric Young representing Team Canada, Taichi Ishikari representing Team Japan, Mr. Aguila representing Team Mexico, and Jerry Lynn representing Team USA. Now, the winner gets 4 points, and it's noteworthy that not only is Taichi the youngest member of the team, he's also never been in a ladder match. And while there is only one result of this match that would eliminate Japan, you'd think they'd want to switch things up and send in a more experienced wrestler into this match to guarantee advancing to the final round. In the exact opposite, not only is Lynn the most experienced person in this match, he also won his first X Division title in the famous three-way ladder match with AJ Styles and Low Ki, which is still one of the best matches in TNA history up to this point.
Yep, and to me, I think you have that as number one in all the matches that we've seen so far for this experiment. You have that as number one, I think, and I have the Triple X AMW cage match as my number one.
Well, we'll see. I bet there's a match coming up in a few months with the Naturals in AMW. I bet that'll take over the top spot, I'm sure.
You didn't say the name right, by the way.
The fucking Naturals.
Thank you.
Thankfully, are not on this show nearly as much as I was feared. This is the story of the fucking Naturals. They show up. They're the most important people in the world for like 5 minutes, and then they disappear, and you don't see them for a month or two.
That's because they're too busy working all of Burt Prentice's spot shows.
So, for all the money TNA has spent over the years, and they went bankrupt multiple times and are somehow still here, the one thing that they never spent more money on was their giant wooden X. And this match was the debut of the giant wooden X that TNA would use over the next decade anytime they needed a non-title object to be grabbed in an X Division match. As Cyndi spoiled for us earlier, regardless of the result of this match, both Team Mexico and Team USA are in the finals. So it's just a matter of that third spot. So really, Jerry Lynn and Mr. Aguilar are just playing spoiler right now. Like, there is no reason why they need to be killing themselves to try to win this match. Because ultimately, what do you get if you have the most points going into the finals? Nothing. So anyway, so a ladder gets wedged into the corner, and Lynn and Young do a series of spots where they both cleverly avoid cracking the ladder. However, it didn't work so well for Lynn when he was fighting with Aguila, because instead he gets supleed onto the ladder bridge. Taichi did the Terry Funk airplane spin with the ladder that, when Terry Funk did it, he would be reckless and out of control and smashing into Sandman's head at full speed. Taichi did this slower and safer, which, because he did it slower and safer, also made it worse. Every time Eric Young would do something to get an advantage, he'd showboat to the crowd and immediately come back to bite him in the ass. Aguila caught Taichi's leg in a ladder and kept slamming the other side of the ladder into his knee. Lin went for a tilt-a-whirl something to Young, but Young blocked it and dropped Lin face first onto a ladder. Lin then went for a running powerbomb to Taichi, but Aguila punched him in the ribs, and Taichi turned it into a head scissors takeover to Lin into a ladder. Young did the most insane bump we have seen since that time the other black shirt security member got heaved up the ramp onto his arm. So they had a ladder set up on the ropes. Taichi knocked Young into the ladder. So Young is just kind of not straddling the ladder, but he's kind of just hugging the ladder at this point. On the apron, Aguila and Jerry Lynn look at each other, look at the end of the ladder, and decide to do a teeter-totter spot, and Eric Young goes flying from inside the ring with a flip bump halfway up the fucking ramp. How did he not break his neck on that?
I mean, we're kind of glad he didn't, because if he did, he's probably not wrestling Mike Santana for the title at Slammiversary.
Yes, Eric Young is the same Eric Young who's in TNA right now, 22 years later. This is not somebody else with a different name, or somebody else with the same name. Oh, God. So Young somehow managed, and this just shows you being young and dumb, which I'll tell you what, I did not appreciate the whole being young and dumb thing when I was in my early 20s. I really appreciate it now. But so Young gets up, gets back in the ring, climbs the ladder again, and Lynn flips him off the top. Then they set up a ladder in the middle of the ring, and Lynn goes for the cradle pile driver off the ladder, which won him the X title the first time. When Scott D'Amore runs down with the fucking hockey stick, breaks it over Lynn's back for the second time in about 3 weeks. Young pulled himself up, which, by the way, Eric Young managed to pull himself up even though he was wedged weirdly in the ladder, which, and with no referee there to hold the ladder. The referee got in the ring to help, but when he saw Young was taking care of it himself, he didn't do anything. But Young pulled himself up, got the X, got the win. Canada goes from worst to first, and Japan is eliminated. This match, excellent, exceeded my expectations. I gave it an 8.0 out of 10. Best match on the show.
I'm not a big fan of ladder matches. I think when they're great, but I didn't think this one was that great. I gave it a 6.5 out of 10. I appreciate all of the spots and everything, the story that was told, and what I also do appreciate is that even though Team Canada was on the ropes, and spoiler alert, you know how you were complaining about when we did the last X Cup, where it was essentially, it was Team Mexico 7, Dave Taylor 5.
Okay.
This is the only Scott D'Amore interference in the show.
Indeed it was. Indeed it was.
And I'm fine with it. Because it's been built up that Team Canada, they're the bad guys. Scott D'Amore is a traditional heel manager who will do anything for his guys to win.
We're the bad guys, eh?
And
not sure when we became Jacques Rougeau here, but
could you imagine if instead of Scott D'Amore, it was Jacques Rougeau?
He would have quit the moment Team Canada lost the first match. You remember they wanted him to come in to WCW in 2000, and when they told him he'd be losing a match, he quit. So.
Yeah, and PCO was there too, and he thought he was going to have like a few week run with the Saskatchewan Hardcore Invitational title.
International title.
international title. But there was quote unquote visa issues, so he just dropped it to
Norman S. Smiley.
Norman S. Smiley, and that's it.
Scott Hudson is now with Ron Killings and 3 Live Crew talking about the King of the Mountain match. Truth vows going to the first Impact as NWA World Champion. Conan and BG are a lot less annoying than usual.
Yes. K-Dog just says they've been flipping the game. He wasn't over the top about it. However, BG says that Russo's stacking the deck against Truth. However, we clearly saw that he was mainly stacking the deck against Jarrett, but whatever.
All right. Now, we talked about this last week. Did you notice that they did not tell you what channel Impact was going to be on? They just said it was going to be on a regional sports network.
Yeah, because if I remember correctly, the story was their pay-per-views through in demand, and they currently have an issue with Fox. So in demand told TNA you cannot mention Fox by name.
Specifically, DirecTV was going to be buying Fox, or Fox was going to be buying DirecTV. And so even though TNA does appear on DirecTV as well, In Demand basically said no. So yeah, Impact is going to be on your regional sports channel. Check your local listings of the regional sports channel in your area for the debut of Impact next week. That's almost as good as remember when Raw was leaving Spike TV and they wouldn't let them say USA Network until like the end of the episode when suddenly Lawler and Coach just kept saying USA Network like 30 times in a row. They finally let them go.
Oh God, I forgot Coach was lead commentator for Raw for a few months in 2005.
It wasn't a few months, a few weeks. Because it was the
felt
second
like
episode.
It felt
It was
like
the
a few
second
months.
episode of Raw was when Linda McMahon turned heel and booted Jim Ross in the groin. And then there was like 2 episodes of Raw because it was building up to Taboo Tuesday, where Steve Austin was going to come out of retirement to do a job for Jonathan Coachman, when all of a sudden he got injured and could not wrestle. And that was the show that they brought in Joey Styles, and Joey ended up being the lead announcer of Raw. Again, Steve Austin was going to have his first match since WrestleMania with The Rock against Jonathan Coachman, and he was going to lose.
And then they realized, wait a minute, we have Batista, and we don't have anything for Batista to do?
Well, Batista was on SmackDown.
Well, I know, but wasn't Batista he came to Taboo Tuesday to be the opponent for Coach.
Yes, but that was after Steve Austin got injured.
By apparently Goldust and Vader.
No, it was he got injured over the weekend.
Yeah.
And but yes, it can't keep being noted. Steve Austin was supposed to come in to lose to Jonathan Coachman. Just want to keep saying that because it was just as fucking ridiculous as it sounds. Next week, Frankie Kazarian versus Amazing Red for the X Division title. Kid Cash and Dallas versus James Storm and Dusty Rhodes for the tag titles. And Ron Killings versus Jeff Jarrett versus AJ Styles versus Chris Harris versus Raven for the world title in the first and somehow not last ever King of the Mountain match. Cannot wait.
Nope.
Armando
Quintero.
Sure the
undercard's going to be pretty good too.
Armando Quintero is now with Team Mexico, and Hector Garza cut a promo in Spanish. Now, I admit, my Spanish is non-existent. However, I know my numbers, and I especially know that at no point did Hector Garza say 15, and Armando Quintero's translation included him saying that Hector Garza said he beat 15 people to win the Gauntlet match. He did not say that, ladies and gentlemen. And by the way, to show you how much I like you, Cyndi, the Takeshita Okada match happened like right now as we're watching this, and I didn't make you go offline for like 30 minutes, but yeah. But yeah, Hector Garza did not say the number 15, but Armando Quintero claims he did. Oh
And
God.
it was just a pretty solid promo. That's all I have to say about that.
And this is not going to be the end of Hector Garza tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to see Hector Garza. I don't know how much he comes in the weeklies, but I know he's going to be here when we get to the monthly pay-per-view era for a little while.
Oh, I should say this is the end of the line for Harai, Hijikara, and Ishikata. They never returned to TNA.
Did we really need to say that, though?
It's my gimmick. Sometimes
Petey
I'm wrong.
Petey Williams versus Hector Garza versus Chris Sabin in an Ultimate X match. Technically, like we mentioned earlier, that the winner gets 5 points, but it doesn't really matter. It's winner takes all. Now, we're going through the different iterations of the Ultimate X match and how they hang up the prize. The first time they held the belt up and it kept falling down. So the second time they made it even higher, which just led to people not climbing, which the belt did not fall out during. This time the cables were lower. However, they had a second cable above it that they attached the championship, or not the cummerbund, but the X to. So you had to shimmy across the cables and then reach up to grab the X. But the good news is that because the cable is higher, or the X is higher, you're able to do a little bit more fantastical moves here with the lower cables. Now, as the match started, Sabin went for a running dive, and it looked for a second like he slipped on the top rope. But instead, what actually happened was when he reached the top rope, Petey shook it, and it caused Sabin to slip and crash and burn. Petey was climbing, Garza tried to stop him, and while he was hanging upside down, Petey came off the cables with DDT. Garza did a double German suplex to both opponents, but then ended up the victim as Petey went for a power bomb and Sabin missile drop kicked Petey, which gave further momentum to that move. Sabin gave Petey the cradle shock off the middle rope, so Petey gave him a Canadian destroyer. All three shimmied to the middle and managed to all knock each other off. Finally, Petey backdrops Garza out of the ring. Sabin knocked Petey off the ropes and then pulled himself up when Garza went for a missile drop kick to knock him off. And then Sabin pulled the X down to win the Ultimate X match and the World X Cup. And it wasn't quite as obvious during the wide shot of this, but when they showed the close-up, Sabin just barely yanked himself up out of the way of that missile drop kick. So that was a really neat little spot there. After the match, it was time for the trophy presentation, and they had trophies for all 4 members of Team USA. They had the bowling trophy for everybody here. So Sabin got one, Lynn got one, Daniels got one, Skipper got one. I bet none of them ever see those trophies ever again. But Kyle Fletcher just turned on Konosuke Takeshita, that bitch. This was a fun, wild match, and while it's sad to report this is our last one-night X Cup show, they went out on a high note. Winner Chris Sabin. Team USA wins with 8 points. I gave this match a 7.5 out of 10.
I gave it a 7.5 out of 10 as well. It is out of the 4 Ultimate X matches that we've watched so far. I think personally to me, I think this is the best one.
I'd have to go back. That Sabin, Shane, Kazarian one was pretty good.
Aside from the belt falling off multiple times.
That was also when Shane bled a gusher.
Plus, I also docked at a point because Michael Shane won. So, this one's the best one.
I know he's your he's your favorite, I know.
No.
I know Cindy's got a bedroom in her house that's just a shrine to Michael Shane.
Which, by the way, join me in a couple minutes online where I will be burning that shrine.
If you want to get something for Cindy for her birthday, and I'm sure that's coming up at some point because there's 365 days in a year, get her some Michael Shane merch.
Shut the fuck up.
Especially not even Michael Shane. Get her some Maverick Matt merchandise. Maybe some Martyr merch. That was when Michael Shane had to change his name to Matt Bentley.
Oh,
he was Maverick Matt.
I was quoting OSW review. Matt Bentley. Who the fuck is he?
So that is the World X Cup. Overall match quality 6.6. Overall enjoyment 10, 10, 10.
10.
This is Sean Spears. It is a 10, ladies and gentlemen. Production issues aside, this show is perfect. It was all action from beginning to end, and the asinine Jarrett Russo stuff was so early that by the time the show ended, you forgot all about it. Future build. Now, like I said, this is the last World X Cup. So we can't sit here and say, oh, yeah, it builds up the next World X Cup perfectly. Or not the last World X Cup, but the last one-night X Cup thing. We're just going to go back to regular TNA programming from now on. But this World X Cup could have been called the future of TNA. 5 wrestlers in this World X Cup are important parts of the company for decades to come. And 4 more get pretty decent pushes at different points. And in fact, Garza was being groomed for a near top spot when he got deported. So it's like, if you want to point to a show and go, this is the future of TNA, the future of Impact, this is the show for you. And it gives us an overall rating of an 8.03. I can't wait to see the next time we get a TNA pay-per-view with such a high rating.
I think we'll be reviewing the... Join us in over a year when we watch Unbreakable.
Unbreakable. They're live, damn it. It's a miracle. Unbreakable. They're live, damn it. But females are strong as hell. Okay. So that is...
Thank you for the Unbreakable Kenny Schmidt reference.
Yes. So that is the TNA World X Cup. But yeah, next week, man, oh man, Maddie, next week, it is the King of the Mountain match. The first ever King of the Mountain match. The first ever episode of Impact. Are you ready for episode 300, Cindy?
As ready as I'll ever be.
It's funny. I was going back and looking at my notes that I posted on the YouTube channel, and apparently figured out back in February that this was going to be the first. This is going to be the 300th episode. It was this week, and here we are.
Yep. Before we go, I have to tell a story.
Are you signing your WWE contract on the Ring of Honor title belt?
That would never fly nowadays. Could you imagine if that actually happened? Athena gets re-signed to signs her WWE contract on the women's championship belt.
Signs it on Bandito's belt.
Yeah, on Bandito's belt, yeah. She wins the belt from Bandito, and then it's like, deuces. So once again, I thank Trey for filling in for me, sending in such short notice. So the plan was to do Mother's Day dinner.
The week after Mother's Day.
Yeah, the week after Mother's Day dinner. But before we were getting ready to go after the NASCAR race, she wasn't feeling well, so we had to postpone. So I didn't have to skip last week. So thanks, Trey. Thanks for taking that bullet for me.
Now, maybe she had a lot of feelings because she knew something was up with Kyle Busch.
Well, she knew she would. He knew he was. She knew he was sick, but not that sick.
Former WWE 24/7 champion Kyle Busch.
Former winner on Wheel of Fortune Kyle Busch.
You know, being the former WWE 24/7 champion is, of course, what everyone knows Kyle Busch for. You know, that whole him being a NASCAR driver and a multi-time champion. That's just some extra news.
Wasn't he also a guest? Wasn't he also a guest host for Monday Night Raw back in 2009?
I don't remember. I don't think was he. He wasn't. Who was it that called Kofi Johnson? I know it was a NASCAR guy.
I think that was Kyle Busch.
It's very possible that Kyle Busch called the former WWE champion Kofi Johnson in what's one of the more forgotten fuck ups by a guest host. You know, everyone remembers
the top 10
Fest.
of guest host fuck ups.
Everyone remembers the Summerfest and Dennis Miller calling Triple H the show. But Kofi Johnson is remembered by very few people, and I'm one of them.
Okay, I found the clip. Shut up. Nobody cares about Les Schwab.
Hey, Grill, what the hell is that?
He's not the only one around here that can make matches.
Joey Logano.
Yeah. So me, on my way of doing burnouts and driving my race car on in here, my Raw race car on in here, I thought about it. And I'm going to put you, Chris Jericho, against Kofi Kingston. Kofi Kingston.
Yeah, it was Kyle Busch. He said it.
And if I remember correctly, Chris Jericho did in fact lose that match to Kofi Johnson.
He lost the match, but he didn't lose the belt.
Well, since he was the tag team champions, much like the match on World Class this week between Chris Adams and the very capable Mike Reed, the title was not on the line in that singles match.
And you're in what, 86 for World Class?
85. Chris Adams still can see, and Gino Hernandez is still alive. And Kerry Von Erich still has 2 feet.
That is going to be such a morbid line.
Mike Von Erich has not yet gone to Israel. Because it's amazing. Like Mike Von Erich, they go to Israel in August. And that's where Mike separates his shoulder. And that's how he ends up getting toxic shock syndrome during the surgery. And then after that's when Gino dies. Then after that's when Kerry gets into his accident. All in a very short amount of time. And that's also when they do the blinding angle with Chris Adams. And then they talk about how the 2 tragedies of Chris Adams losing his eyesight and Gino Hernandez dying are of equal sadness.
Jesus Christ.
And Lance is on his way in. Lance Von Erich is on his way in.
Sadly not played by MJF.
Nope. And I've noted on the show, the last Ric Flair NWA World Title match in World Class is against Lance Von Erich.
Good Lord.
Keep that in mind, everybody.
I can't think of a way to end a show lower than that.
He could have wrestled Jenna Maraska.
-5 stars.
I don't know. Do you think Ric Flair could have gotten a match out of Jenna Maraska?
Well, he got a 3-star match out of El Gigante.
I want the belt.
The belt. You know, people crap on El Gigante, and rightfully so. But there have been far worse giants than him.
I can't believe you would diss Giant Silva like that.
What about Raja Lion?
Oh, God. All right. Well, we're cutting into Athena versus Mina Shirakawa. And believe me, I'm not jonesing for that match, but it's on now. Anywho, so let's get going here. So we'll have to talk at you later. Next week is episode number 300. But thank you all for listening this week. Hope you all enjoyed the show. We'll talk to you again in 7 days.
It's going to be emotional.